I know you had a really big point on this, negotiation tactics and what actually works. Tell me a little bit more about this give-get concept.
Yeah, so giving and getting really should be the foundation of how you negotiate, or let me rephrase that. Change the way that you think about negotiation and think about it as a giving and getting motion. A lot of folks hear the word negotiation and they don't love it. They feel like it maybe is, too strong of a word, or there's conflict or something like that. I always say, if you don't like the word negotiate, replace it with the word communicate. And you're really essentially doing the same thing. So when we're talking to our prospects, when we're talking to our existing accounts, it really doesn't matter who we're talking to. The first thing you need to do is think about giving and getting. And what do I mean by that? So as a sales professional, it most likely, because we see it time and time again, you give things away. Oh, they want information? Sure, I'll send it as an attachment. Oh, they want this? Yep, I'll do that, right? You give. It's exhausting. So think about it a little bit differently. I'm fine if you still send them that attachment, you got to get something in return, right? So that's what we mean by giving and getting. So prospect wants you to send some overviews. Sure. Hey, would you mind sharing with me a bit more about who on your team will be looking at that? I'd love to better understand the team dynamics there. Whatever it could, the get could be something as little as information. That, the give get, is the foundation of how you negotiate through the entire sales cycle.
I like that. I like that. Now, Jen, do you see negotiation in the same light?
Yeah, I really love that point. We at Pleo, we call this the if you then I principle. So we break everything down into, if you can deliver X, then I can do this for you. And we actually try to, because a lot of times at negotiation, especially we as account executive, we think about a discounted price. But we try to break it down actually into 4 levers. We call it the 4 levers of a deal, which is the timing of a deal. So when are we actually becoming a client? It's the contract length. So how long are we going to be a client? It's the deal size. So while you are a client, how much in total are you going to pay? And the payment terms. So that is what we try to find a common ground on, and always use those levers in this if you then I principle for every level of negotiation in those 4 levers. Specific example, if you're negotiating, for example, the timing of the deal, right? Most of the time, we have one week left now in September. We need to bring on those deals. A specific sentence that I would usually use is, if you're willing to sign this deal before 5 p.m. on Friday, then I will able to give you a 10% discount off. If I don't get a signature before, then you will go back to the list price. Would that help you moving this deal forward? So be very specific about that. And we always have those 4 levers in mind to move a deal forward. That's a bit on how we or I think about negotiation specific in that case.
I like that a lot. Now, Meg, I know you had a point about emotion when it comes to this. What do you think about emotion in negotiation?
Yeah, so it's hard not to insert emotion into negotiation. It's natural. I get it. But it's a better idea to take it away and think of negotiations as objections, or being objective, excuse me, not as objections, but as that as well, if you'd like, but as being objective. So being more nuts and bolts, being more data oriented around the negotiation rather than getting your emotions in it. It can be tough. It's exhausting. Like if you're trying to get a deal over the line and you feel like you've been giving, and you're starting to get angry and you're starting to get upset, that frustration is going to come through real quick. And your prospect's going to see it right away. And it's not a good look. One thing, Jan, that you were saying about the discounting. So it's funny. I try really hard never to even,
discount.
I try really hard never to even say the word discount when I'm negotiating. I talk about it as the dreaded D word, right? Because I don't even want to give it power. I don't want to even give it power, right? So one thing that I've been doing over the last couple of years that has worked is, if I'm not driving urgency and I haven't held my prospect really accountable through the negotiation process, and we're getting to a point where it's unclear whether they're not going to sign, I actually at that point I won't offer the dreaded D word, because at that point it just sort of looks like, okay, this is sort of a last minute thing. Maybe I didn't do this right. I'll actually go back and say, I use the I'm confused card. So the I'm confused is, we had agreed that this contract would be signed by X date, and here we are. I'm confused. What's changed? So I actually hold them accountable to that before I would introduce, some sort of pricing flexibility or adjustment on a red line. That's also obviously, a different approach. If you're selling into enterprise, that's a more difficult thing to do. So just some food for thought if you're thinking about discounting in general. I think of it as the dreaded D word. If you all leave here and don't say the word discount again, I'll love you for it. You need to maintain leverage, sort of what Jan was talking about. You need to maintain leverage early on. And what is really important and how to keep that leverage strong is going into any conversation you have with a prospect. And I want you to think about like a ladder, like a ladder you would climb. And a lot of us put ourselves at the bottom rung of a ladder, like the bottom step, and we put our prospects above us, right? So we put them way above us. Right there, we are not establishing an even and level playing field, which is a really critical component to how you communicate and negotiate with your prospects. So next time you have a conversation, I want you to literally think about a ladder, and I want you to think about yourself as being right on the same rung of that ladder with your prospect, so that when you're having conversations with them, you're using language that elevates you. You're using language that maintains those leverage points. You're not using language like discounting that loses the leverage and brings you down in negotiation, right? So it's only going to take you backwards. It's not going to move you forwards. So one thing I really try to get, I say this to myself all the time, and whenever I'm talking to folks, I think about it. Try not to think of negotiation as a singular event. Try to think of it as a format. Try to think of it as a journey. I don't love that word, but I'm going to use it anyway. Try to think of it as a way of communication, because if you think about it as a singular event, then every single time you think you have to negotiate, you're going to brace and you're going to go like this, and it's not going to be pretty. So what I want us to think about is it's how we communicate with our prospects. That goes back to my giving and getting point earlier on. Start early, exchange the gives and gets, build up that communication, hold them accountable. It's a really great way to drive urgency. And it gets your prospect used to that type of communication. So they're not surprised when fast forward a couple months down the road and you're having a conversation about red lines in a contract and they want a section removed and your legal team doesn't. They're not going to be surprised when you come in saying, all right, here's what we can do. I'm more than happy to add this section in. With that being said, if we put that section in, can I count on you to give us a great testimonial or a strong testimonial, say a couple months out, right? That prospect isn't going to go like, where did that come from? Like they're going to have been used to it, right? Because you got to start it early and often.